Hey everyone, I just want to take a few minutes to clarify something for my Christian friends. Something that in the wake of my brief Bible Blunders episode 3 video, link to the right of the screen, seems to be vexing and confusing Christians, much to my surprise, I might add. That video deals with the fact that the Gospel of Mark and the Gospel of John differ as to the time and day of Jesus' crucifixion. In fact, the Gospel of John differs from all the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as to the day on which Jesus was crucified. Christians have been posting comments that exhibit all sorts of confusion about this. It always kind of amuses me to see such confusion among Christians about what their scriptures say and mean, because I'm continually told by Christians that only they can understand the Bible because they have the Holy Spirit. They have the mind of the Spirit. The Spirit must be telling different Christians different things about the same passages, which is a strange way to work for a God who is purported not to be the author of confusion. In any case, let's get the overall timeline clear first, okay? The relevant time period for our purposes in each of the four Gospels is what we call Thursday, particularly Thursday after sundown, Friday, and Saturday. Now, keep in mind that the Jews of Jesus' time and the Bible, more generally, marks days from sundown to sundown. So sundown Thursday to sundown Friday is one day. We'll call it day one. Sundown Friday to sundown Saturday is another day. We'll call it day two. And sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday is yet another day. We'll call it day three. We're not going to be talking about day three very much, but there it is. It's the first day of the week in the timeline. In all four of the canonical Gospels, Jesus is crucified during the daytime hours on day one. Okay? There's no question about this, no discrepancy. The discrepancy arises with respect to whether day one is the first day of Passover or the day before Passover, the so-called day of preparation for the Passover. Now, according to the synoptic Gospels, day one was the first day of Passover. But according to John, day one was the day of preparation for Passover. That is, the day before the first day of Passover. You might call it Passover Eve. All right, so in the Synoptic Gospels, when Jesus and his disciples have their Last Supper together on Thursday evening, that's the first part of day one, they are having a Passover Seder. See, for example, Luke 22:15, in which, as the meal begins, Jesus says to his disciples, "I have earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer." Now, over in John's Gospel, right, Jesus is sitting down to supper with his apostles on Thursday evening, the first part of day one, and it is before the feast of the Passover, John 13:1. Moreover, we know that day one in John is the day before the Passover because of what several other passages in the Gospel of John say. Let's look at them. First, in John 13:29, Jesus sends Judas off to do his betrayal business, and we're told that some at the table thought that Jesus was sending Judas out to, quote, buy the things we need for the feast. What feast? The Passover, which had not yet begun. That's the feast. It's worth noting that the Greek word translated feast in John 13:29 is herete. I believe I've said that correctly, which means a holy day or a festival. It occurs about 26 times in the New Testament, 18 of which, 2/3 of which, refer to Passover. So some of the apostles, according to John's gospel, thought Jesus was sending Judas out to get stuff for the Passover Seder, something that wouldn't be happening until sundown the next day. Okay? If they're eating the Passover right then, certainly Jesus wouldn't be sending Judas out to get stuff for the feast. Second, John 18:28, when the Jewish religious leaders bring the arrested Jesus, whom they've interrogated through some part of the overnight on day one, when they bring Jesus to Pilate early on the morning of day one, quote, they themselves did not enter the praetorium, that is Pilate's palace, in order that they might not be defiled, but might eat the Passover. Passover had not yet begun. According to John, the Jewish leaders wanted to avoid ritual defilement, which would have prevented them from eating the Passover after sundown, the beginning of day 2, what we would call Friday evening. Third, when Pilate is about to sentence Jesus, John 19:14 tells us, quote, now it was the day of preparation for the Passover. It was about the 6th hour, that is, about 12 noon. Shortly after this, Jesus is taken off to be crucified. So we have in total 4 passages in John that clearly, unequivocally show that for John, day 1 was the day before the first day of the Passover, the preparation day for the Passover. So in the Synoptic Gospels, day 1 on our chart is the first day of Passover. But in John, day 1 on our chart is the day before the first day of Passover, Passover Eve, as it were. Now, lots of Christians expressed confusion because the Synoptic Gospels refer to day 1 as a preparation day. But notice that they refer to the preparation day for the Sabbath. See, for example, Mark 15:42 and Luke 23:54. Not the preparation day for the Passover. For the Synoptics, day 1 is both the first day of Passover and the preparation day for the Sabbath. By contrast, in John's Gospel, day 1 is the preparation day for Passover and the preparation day for the Sabbath. The Sabbath would have been the first day of Passover for John. As John 19:31 notes, it was, quote, a special Sabbath. So while the Synoptic Gospels and the Gospel of John all have Jesus being executed during the daytime hours on day 1 on our chart, they contradict one another as to what day 1 was. The Synoptics have day 1 as the first day of Passover. Gospel of John has it as the preparation day for the Passover, the day before the first day of Passover. Now, Mark and John also contradict one another as to the time of Jesus' crucifixion, with Mark saying that Jesus was crucified at about 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday, day 1, while John has Jesus being crucified sometime after 12 noon on Friday. Okay, so they contradict on the times, but that's Mark and John. Anyway, I hope that helps to clear up the confusion. Thanks a lot.